Hello and welcome. Thank you for listening. My name is Sarah Baumert. I'm a yoga teacher, Feldenkrais practitioner, and host of the Sarah B. Yoga podcast. The Sarah B. Yoga podcast and my practice, Body Matter, is an interdisciplinary learning space where we explore the many ways that movement can help facilitate body acceptance and awareness, reduce pain and stress, regulate the nervous system, and build strength and ease. My teaching plays with the synthesis of Feldenkrais awareness through movement lessons, traditional yoga asana, creative imagery, breathing exercises, self-massage, and a compassionate mindset to help you feel a greater sense of ease and comfort in yourself. Sarah B. Yoga and Body Matter have a lot of other program offerings. These podcasts are just a taste of my teaching. Each week I teach a range of online classes, including a gentle yoga class, a level 2 class for more advanced students, and Feldenkrais classes with monthly themes, anatomy lessons, and Q&A sessions for more in-depth study. I have 2 new online series offerings for the fall. A Feldenkrais series titled Coming to Your Senses, an exploration of the spaces of the eyes, the mouth, jaw, ears, vocal and breathing apparatus. And my second course, Wakeful Body, the blending of yoga and Feldenkrais on Monday nights. As one student recently described Monday nights, that felt like I just gave myself a massage. So these fall classes will be a continuation of some fan favorite stretching sequences that incorporate bolsters and other props to enhance the poses. There is still plenty of time to join these courses live or via the course recordings. You can find more information about these offerings in the show notes. Okay, on to today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Hello, welcome to episode 58 of the Sarah B. Yoga podcasts. I'm Sarah Baumert, your host and teacher. I teach a slow alignment-based yoga practice that is influenced by my training in the Feldenkrais method. Today I'm coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. The title of today's class is A Gentle Trip Around the Hips. This is a gentle level 1 class, similar to the class that I teach currently on Thursdays. And as we open the hips on our back during the beginning of this class, I'll give you some detailed cues to bring precision and intention to the shape. And then later on, we will use those same cues in standing as we work the body in similar shapes, similar asanas, but standing on one leg rather than lying on the back. You'll also experience a bit of focus on side bending or lateral flexion of the spine towards the end of class. Please have 2 blankets and a block, and you can see the show notes for an image of how we will fold the 2 blankets in order to create a bolster for the final part of class. If you have a flat yoga bolster, you can just use that. For my schedule of live online classes on Zoom and my self-paced courses that include video, you can find more about those at my website, body-matter.com. And as always, I hope you are enjoying these podcasts and that they are helpful for you to be able to maintain a home practice. Please, if you can, leave a review on iTunes, Google, or wherever you get your podcasts. Okay, let's get started. So we're going to use a block today here right at the beginning, and I think that's all you'll need while we're on our back, but do have your blankets and your strap handy for later on. So just have one block that is somewhere alongside your mat so you can grab it when we need it and come onto your back. Let's take the legs along to begin with. Your arms can be either alongside your body, or if you like to have your palms on your belly, if that's a nice grounding place for you to be, you're welcome to do that. Allowing your eyes to close. So just simply emptying before we begin. Noting where you're coming from mentally, physically, and just feeling the weight of your body, feeling its relationship with gravity right now. And just take a scan of how your pelvis rests on the floor. Noticing its shape, noticing the way that the tissues spread. And then from the back of the pelvis, slowly, very slowly start to scan up so that you feel that moment where your pelvis begins to leave the floor and it turns into the curve of the low back. Everyone's lumbar curve here is a very different shape. Most people will have a little bit of space between the low back and the floor. And even if you feel like you don't have space, can you notice how the pressure changes? So there's more weight down on the pelvis. And then at a certain point, the weight lessens. And just stay for a moment in that low back region. And as you breathe in, direct your inhale, the expansive inhale, towards the abdomen so that you feel a movement in your low belly, not just the belly moving forward, but also the sides of the waist expanding and maybe your low back also receiving some of that movement. And continue to watch the low back and bend your knees and stand your feet. Once you do that, like notice if you like to shift a little bit to get really comfortable and just feel now the contact of your low back with the floor or the curve, the distance, how it's changed. Your hands are on your belly, bring them off of the belly. Just push your feet into the floor so that you pick your pelvis up, just more or less hovering it. And if you can do this comfortably with your wrists and your shoulders, bring your hands to the back of your pelvis, right where you feel the very top of your pelvis. So it might even be like a little bit on the waist area. And you're going to manually take this area, which I'll call today in class the upper butt flesh. So it's a fun one to say. So taking that upper butt flesh and actively doing it with your hands, manually moving it in the direction of your sitting bones. And it should feel a bit like you're lengthening the low back. It's subtle though. And do that and then gently lower your pelvis down. And so we just kind of manually lengthened or flattened, you could say, the low back. We'll play with this a little bit today. So not that we want to have a flat low back all the time, but you'll see. Draw the right knee in, take it with your two hands. And as you pull the right knee towards the chest, the low back will likely drop deeper into the floor. And even though we have a pressure now on the abdomen, the right side of the abdomen, and the floor beneath the low back, can you still create some expansion in your abdominal area. Keep that alive. Push your left foot into the floor so that you can just hover your pelvis. And think of now, without doing it manually with your hands, but just doing it from the inside, of lengthening the low back, taking the upper butt flesh towards the sitting bones. Another way to say it, which I'll use a bit today, is drawing the pubic bone towards the navel. And maintain that length in the low back and slowly lower your low back and the back of the pelvis to the floor, and really feel how it comes back down into the floor, meets the floor. And now try to maintain that contact with the floor and lengthen your left leg long. Great. And you can have an active standing left leg, neutral rotation, flexed left ankle. And so feeling a simple beginning, but we will do this as a one-legged standing balance eventually. So just feeling the length of your spine from your tail all the way up and out through the crown of the head. Right, and then let that release. Take your right foot to the floor, slide your left knee in towards your chest, give it a squeeze in with the hand. And just pause here, feeling this hip crease and its willingness to fold, or sometimes unwillingness. And so you can play slightly with the exact angle that you have your knee. Feel free to have your left ankle and toes just passive right now. And then press your right foot into the floor, just pick your pelvis up, even less than an inch, and start to engage this action of lengthening the low back, looking for that length, taking the upper butt flesh towards the sitting bones. It might begin to activate your lower belly when you do that. And can you try to maintain that action, then lower back to the floor? Keep the low back spreading into the floor as the right leg lengthens. Neutral rotation, flexed right foot. Great. Slowly lower that left foot back down. Slide your right foot to stand as well. Now grab your block. Your left leg is going to go long in that neutral rotation position. And we're going to widen the right knee, or let the right knee tip out to the right for a tree pose. So if you can take your foot, you can grab it with your ankle, right ankle with your right hand, to place the foot on the inner thigh area. If that's not possible, you can take the right foot to the inner half. Right? You could still do what we're doing even with that foot lower down. You can also have it on the knee. We don't have a lot of, we're not standing on one leg right now, so we don't have weight there. So if you find a good place to nestle your foot near the knee joint, it's actually okay. So then take your block and place it underneath your right knee. You kind of bring it in towards your pelvis a little bit. Yeah, and you might have to take a moment to really find that good connection of the sole of your foot and the inner left leg, right? And once you find it, actively press in so that the right foot doesn't slip. And you want to have the block underneath your right leg so that you can start to push your right thigh or right knee down towards the block. And don't do it too much yet. Bring your hands to your hip points. Notice if your right hip point is lower than your left. Can you do something to equalize those two hip points? And then I'm not going to tell you what it is. Just try to find it internally. And then pressing that right foot into your leg, the inner right heel, reach it towards the ceiling. It stays on your leg, right? It still is giving a lot of pressure to your leg, but you're thinking of lifting the inner right heel towards the ceiling. You might turn the ankle a little bit. So it's just starting to bring in that rotation. Your right leg can now really start to press down into the block. And as your right leg presses down into the block, your hands are keeping track of those hip points. Make sure that the right hip point doesn't sink. So your pelvis is trying to stay at the same altitude, right and left. Yeah, and then just notice if you're breathing or if all of these cues, all these directions brought some tension into the chest or the neck. Okay, let that release. Stand your right foot. Move the block over to the left. Just let your right leg lengthen. We'll go just right to the left side. So taking the sole of the left foot to inner thigh or somewhere else down the leg. Bringing that block, whatever height seems most useful for you. And again, you can kind of slide it closer in towards your pelvis. It doesn't have to be right under the knee. And bring your hands to your hip points. Yeah, great. So this is a really good moment to pay attention to the standing leg. Make sure that standing right leg isn't rotated out. It will want to do that with gravity right now. So it's almost like you're thinking of internally rotating your right leg to bring it to neutral. And the right leg is pushing into the foot just as much as the foot is pushing into the leg. And then bring your pelvis to neutral. Feel where your left heel meets your right leg. And try to lift the left heel, the inner left heel, in the direction of the ceiling. Simultaneously press the left leg down towards the block. Good. Exhale, let that release. Take your left leg long. Okay, so very similar, but without a block. You're going to cross your right ankle across your left thigh. So it's the figure 4 position with the left leg long, so you actually are making a 4. Yeah, great. And flex the right ankle firmly so you can feel right where the right ankle bone might be putting some pressure into your left quad. There might be a little bit of tenderness right there. So as we're here, you could bring your hands to your hip points again. Try to keep the two at the same altitude. Now just imagine there's a block underneath your right knee. Move the right knee down towards the floor. And as you move the right knee towards the floor, think of lifting your right ankle off of your left thigh, which will not happen, but that's the direction that you're moving the right ankle. Try to take that pressure of the right ankle that's on the left thigh, take it off. Yeah, great. Okay, keep the right ankle where it's at. Bring your arms down so that your hands grab onto the edges of your mat. Your arms are down, grabbing the edges of the mat. Slide your left foot towards you so your left knee bends. And the left foot. And now in this position, begin to move the right knee away from you. Simultaneously, try to take the right ankle off of the left thigh. Push the left foot into the floor, hover your pelvis. Reach the upper butt flesh towards the sitting bones. And now with your hands, push the mat. So your hands are pushing the mat in the direction of the foot end of the mat. And you might feel the force go back up. It's sort of like whatever goes, if something goes down, something has to come up. even though we're horizontal right now, but it's that same idea. So you'll feel a little pressure up in the direction of your head. Okay, and then slowly lower the pelvis down with that sense of length in the low back. Release the hands from the mat, pick up your left foot. Right hand's gonna slide through the donut hole of the legs and just interlace hands on the left thigh or the left shin. Take a moment to use your arms to deepen this pose. But knowing that we don't always count on them. We don't always count on the arms. Okay, so just keeping a good hug in, do a slight rock right and left, shifting to one side of the spine and the other, letting your head begin to roll. Great, slowly let that release. Bring both feet to the floor. Lengthen your right leg long. Find neutral with the right leg. Cross your left ankle onto the right thigh. The left ankle will be flexed. Left knee widens to the left. Imagine there's a block underneath your left knee. Push down into it and simultaneously try to lift your left ankle off of your right thigh. Good. And just breathing here for a moment, just becoming very attentive to those directions that you're working the leg. The left butt should feel like it's starting to activate as you move the left knee in the direction of the floor. And then keeping the contact of left ankle to right thigh. Bend your right knee and stand your right foot. Grab the sides of your mat. And now try to pick your left ankle off of your right thigh again. Try to, with the strength of your leg, bring your left ankle towards your face. And your left knee is still moving away from you. Then slowly lift your pelvis up, just an inch or so. And with your hands, push the mat away from you. You might even feel that it creates a sliding of your upper back and the back of your head along the mat. And then look for the length in the low back. As you're here, can you reach your pubic bone in the front towards your navel? And then very slowly lower down. Feel that lower back area get wider. Release hands from the mat, pick up the right foot, and take a hold of your right leg. And just notice as you bring the legs closer in, how that takes the lower back deeper into the floor. A deep, active movement in the low belly. And then taking a slight rock or a roll side to side. Good. Let that release. Bring your right foot down, stand your left foot. And bring your arms quite close to the body, snug them in so that your upper arm bones are touching your side ribs. From there, bend your elbows so that you're in the robot arm position. Open the eyes and feel the back of the head meeting the floor. Press the back of the head and the elbows, as well as back of shoulders, into the floor. And then slowly begin to lift the pelvis. And that first moment when the pelvis leaves the floor, pause there and start to reach that upper butt flesh towards the sitting bones. Continue to reach the sitting bones in the direction of your knees. Zip the sitting bones down the backs of the legs to the knees and continue to just peel yourself up towards this bridge pose, using the push of the upper arm bones into the floor to help lift the sternum. Let's see how this feels for you today. This kind of first moment of saying hello to the chest and the upper back. And while you're here, while you're up here, can you keep looking for that length in the low back? Good. Very slowly lower yourself down. Relax your arms down and heel toe your feet out so they are about as wide as your mat or even wider. And let your two knees fall to the right. Okay, so big toe edge of the left foot will stay very active. You could think like you're steering your left leg and your left hip with the big toe edge of the left foot. And feel, you could let your left knee like really push it towards the floor. Let's not do that. Instead, feel your left thigh bone reaches away from the belly. Right? So it's getting longer away from your head. And it's not like we're trying to pull the thigh bone out of the hip joint. So your pelvis, can you think of your pelvis moving with your thigh bone? Your pelvis is very friendly with your thigh bone right now. So keep reaching that left thigh away from the belly. Bring your pelvis with it. And I will give you an option here to step your right foot, the sole of the right foot, onto the top of your left thigh. The cat gets out of the way, you'll be able to see that. Yeah, so, and if you're doing that, you're gonna put pressure with the foot into the thigh, and the foot is gonna help reach the thigh in that direction we're working with. So just an option, but you don't wanna stress the front of the hip too much. So keep that reach of the leg, take your arms overhead, bend your right elbow so that your right hand can find your left forearm or left wrist. And actively reach your left arm. Your right hand is just helping, supporting. And again, it's not that we're trying to pull the arm out of the shoulder joint. So can you feel your ribs and even your scapula moving with the left arm? Your ribs are trying to slide out of the waist and slide out of the lower back and follow the left arm. So we have these kind of bigger masses of bone that are in the torso, the pelvis, and the ribs they have their own limb that they're following. Great. Exhale, let that release. Come back to center. So just a note on the foot coming onto the leg. It's not the foot on the outer part of the leg. What that is going to do is that's going to put that pressure down so that the knee would drop towards the floor, and that could kind of strain this area a little bit. So it's the foot right on the top of the thigh. And then I'm taking the foot and I'm pushing my leg the direction my fingers are pointing here, right? So my heel is pushing onto my thigh and I'm trying to push this way for those that chose that variation. Okay, let's do the second side. So take your feet wide. Let the knees fall to the left. So flex your right foot so that you feel the big toe edge pressing down. And that can help steer this action of reaching the thigh. Thigh is moving towards the knee. Again, you're not trying to get that inner right knee to touch the floor. We're not interested in that. You should still be able to feel a good stretch through the front of your right hip. If you don't, can you engage your right glute a little bit more? Does that opposite muscle work? And so you remember your pelvis is trying to chase or follow your right thigh. And then if you'd like to take your left foot, if you did that variation on the first side, try it on the second side. Sole of the foot on the right thigh. Give it a moment, feeling your breath. And letting your arms come overhead. Left elbow bends so that you can take a hold of your right wrist. And the right arm begins to lengthen. And the right side ribs moving with the right arm. And when we look for that deep stretch, that sort of the peak of the pose or that deepest place, sometimes we actually hold our breath there, or that can be a habit. So notice that. I'm saying that because I often find myself doing that when I'm doing something like this, where the two limbs are really reaching away from one another. And you can breathe in and really reach, and you can feel that. And then can you still, inhabit the pose, breathing out also. Great. All right. Slowly let that release. Take your two knees back to the middle. Bring both knees into the chest and just give them a little squeeze in. Once you're there, you can rock slightly side to side. Great. All right, let's roll to the side. Come on up to your hands and your knees. All right, so make your way to dog in prayer with your hands. And we're going to kind of come in and out of dog in prayer, slightly in and out of it. So first find the depth of your dog in prayer. Make sure that your pelvis is over your knees, not forward of your knees. And also not way back at your heels like child's pose, right? So we're trying to have the thigh bones so they're about vertical. Great, and hands can be a little wider than shoulders to give your shoulders some space. Spread the fingers, feel the finger pads rooting down. Let your sternum sink towards the floor for a moment. As your sternum sinks towards the floor, keep your armpits and your forearms lifting. Yeah, great. And as your arms are reaching forward, let your ribs move with your arms. Ribs are sliding out of the waist. Using your exhale to help power the pelvis backward, like your pelvis wants to come to your feet. And then slowly begin to round your back so you come towards a cat spine. There'll be a long cat spine because your hands are far from your feet. And so you can start to shift your pelvis forward just a little bit. Tuck your chin in towards your chest, let your shoulder blades round. And then just reverse that and come back into your dog in prayer. Make sure your knees are happy about this. So if you need padding on your knees, sink into dog in prayer for a moment. Let the sternum drop. Press firmly down with your hands. Forearms and armpits lift.
Good. And then use your exhale and begin to curl the tail down. Round the low back, round the mid back. Begin to come forward into that long cat spine. The head can drop, shoulder blades can round or widen. Good. And one more time back towards the dog in prayer. If your shoulders are getting a little bit tired, just lift your upper back away from the floor slightly so that you're not in such a deep stretch. Good. Last time, rounding into that long cat spine, tail rooting towards the floor. And once you're there, just take a few steps back with your hands until your hands are more underneath your shoulders and you feel how you have a much more firm press into the floor. Use your arms to really open up the upper back space, spread the shoulder blades wide, like you're trying to pull the sternum into the body, kind of capturing the sternum. Good. Inhale, arch the back into cow spine, look forward. Exhale, turn the toes under and reach back to down dog. Great. Okay, so play for a moment. Everybody do this. See what it's like to take your hands a little bit farther from your feet. And now it might feel like more weight in your arms, but once you do that, bend your knees a little bit, push the floor down and forward, move your thigh bones back. Good. And then feel like you're doing cow spine or the arch back in your upper back. Yes, good. And yes, it might lift your head up, which means that your neck is also doing the cow spine. So let that happen for right now. Yeah. Good. Nice, everyone. Lower your knees down. Take your hands a little bit wider and lower yourself onto your belly. Let's just stack the hands for a moment, forehead on the hands. Feel the legs are about hips distance, the ankles are long, tops of the feet on the floor. Feel your pubic bone root towards the floor. And in this position, while we're on the belly, can you think of moving the upper butt flesh towards your sitting bones? So, it's going to be like a little tuck of the tail, which I often don't use that cue. And just so we're looking for the length in the low back. So the pubic bone root down. And now lift just your elbows. Your hands will stay on the floor. Feel your elbows lifting. Try not to draw shoulder blades into the neck, but actually slide your shoulder blades down toward your back pockets. And then hands and forehead stay connected. Lift your hands off the floor. Keep your shoulder blades gliding down toward your back pockets. Good. Pubic bone continues to root towards the floor. Upper butt flesh moving towards sitting bones. So then this is less about your lower back working as we look for the extension in the upper back. Go ahead and release elbows and palms down. Take a breath in, let your belly expand. And then slide your hands back so that your thumbs are near your side ribs. Fingers point forward like cobra pose. Draw the elbows in. You slowly begin to lift the head, lift the shoulders. Feel the front of your throat move towards the back of your throat. And even here, rooting pubic bone down, and scavenging for the extension in your upper back. And so you can let your arms be helpful. Press your hands down and pull the mat in the direction of your feet. Reach your elbows for your feet. So that's just going to start to firm the shoulder blades a little bit. And then moving the vertebra between the shoulder blades forward. Yeah, good. Exhale, slowly release. Okay, one more here on our belly. Take your arms straight out to the side, straight out from your shoulders. Rotate your arms so the thumbs point up. So I'm making a thumbs up sign. And slowly lift the two arms. Let's keep the forehead, you can keep the forehead on the floor, hovering to start with. Lift the two arms and feel the shoulder blades draw towards the spine. And once you feel that action, then you can start to float the head up so that the head meets the curve of the upper back. Good. Pubic bone can continue to root down. Yeah, so remember your thumbs are pointing up. If you made a fist, you'd have that thumbs up sign. There it is. Good. Could you lower your chest 1/2 inch, but lift your arms? Good, great. And slowly lower that down. Slide your hands under your shoulders, push up to hands and knees. Turn the toes under and reach back to down dog. And again, while you're in your down dog, see if you can use what we just did on the floor, that waking up of the upper back, and imagine you're doing cow spine in your upper back. Don't even imagine it. Do cow spine in your upper back. And try not to do it in your low back. Try not to do it so much in your neck even. Yes, great. Yeah, and so if you do find your head lifted a lot, just feel, can I keep what's happening in my upper back and just release my head so that the ears and the upper arm bones are in line with one another. Yeah, keeping what you found in the upper back. Beautiful. Okay, let's get the weight out of these arms. Walk your hands back towards your feet. Take a moment in Uttanasana, let the arms hang. Bring some full length into the back of the neck. Feel the breath expand into back ribs. And as you breathe in, slowly start to come towards flat back, as if you're going to do cow spine in your upper back, not your neck, but the upper back. Just slide the hands up the shins. Great. Exhale, fold forward. And one more time, coming through that flat back, and then just slide your hands to your hips and come all the way up to stand. Okay, so we're going to do a little standing balance work. So one leg standing balance work. Do have a block nearby. And if you feel like you would really like a wall close by, because it will just be useful, if that's the case, use just one fingertip at the wall to start you to get yourself a little bit more in that balanced place in the position, and then you can play with taking the hand off the wall. Okay, just set that block down. All right, so start by just finding a place where you're going to look at. And just find a place where you can look forward, maybe look down, something that's not moving, and just set your focus. And feel the 2 feet planted. And feel that sense of the tail rooting, the upper butt flesh moving towards the sitting bones, that action, just so you can start to engage the low belly. And then from there, shift your weight in the direction of your right foot. So your spine, your pelvis starts to stack over your right leg until you feel like you can free up your left leg, bringing the left knee towards the chest. The very first pose we did. Great. And so as you bring your left knee towards your chest, can you keep your right leg very straight so that the right knee doesn't buckle and over round the low back? So that's length through the back of the right knee, and the top of the right thigh can even press back towards you. Nice, everyone. Yeah, and just, noticing all the little shifting in your ankle and your foot. And if you're in my walking class, you can feel that fourth metatarsal and the first metatarsal pressing down. Okay, let that release. Take your left foot down. Feel the weight on both feet for a moment. Using your eyes, your drishti point, as it's called in yoga, the focus of the eyes on one spot. And just start to shift your weight into your left foot, bringing the right knee up and towards the chest. As you pull the right knee in, you can do a little opening of the chest. The sternum is lifted. And you feel that action of the upper butt flesh moving down without buckling the left knee. So your left thigh bone presses back. Nice, everyone. Not holding the breath. Great. Slowly lower that right foot down. Okay, so we're going to progress this, but you're welcome to stay there, right? If you feel like that was a lot for your body to work with and you want to stay there because it will feel more useful for you. So next is tree pose. So left foot, you can come down at the calf. You can bring the foot up towards that inner thigh area. And remember what we did, the cues, I'll tell you them, but we're going to remember the cues that we did when we were lying on our back. So bring your hands to your hip points. Make sure those hip points are pointing straight forward, not rotated towards your left knee. And it's like there's a block behind your left knee, and you're going to push backward into that block. Yeah, and your left heel stays connected to your inner thigh or inner leg, but think of moving that left heel forward. So you're finding this rotation in the left leg. Pelvis is staying neutral. Nice, everyone. And you could keep your hands at your hips if that feels like where you want to stay. Otherwise, taking the arms overhead. Now, remember this idea of the arms lengthening or the limbs moving in one direction and parts of the body following them. So, with your left foot, if it's on the thigh in particular, you might feel that there's a sense that, the left leg is rooting deeper and deeper into the floor. The pelvis is rooting with the right leg. And the arms are lengthening towards the ceiling, and the ribs, especially the side ribs, can slide up out of the waist and reach with the arms. Yeah, and your right leg might be fatiguing a little bit. Good. Slowly lower the arms down, release that left foot down. Okay, just bend both knees a little bit. Take your feet a little bit wider. And just after that long time on one foot, just do a little shift side to side. Just feel the weight shifting. Just let your system know you've got 2 feet that you can actually stand on. Not just one. Okay, and then coming to that second side. So shifting the weight over your left foot, bringing the right foot either to calf or inner thigh. And, a lot of teachers say don't put it on the knee, and my teacher would actually say it was okay. So I really say that is unique to you, and if it feels okay to actually put that pressure on the knee. There is kind of a nice place for the foot to nestle in there. So once you've found that spot, bring the hands to the hip points. Take the upper butt flesh down. Think of rooting the tail towards the floor. Move the right knee back without turning your pelvis. Good. Think of taking your right heel forward. Very subtle cue, subtle movement. Great. Take the arms out to the side and slowly overhead. Eyes looking at that single focal point. Soft gaze with the eyes. So it's not hard, but quite focused in. And as the arms lengthen upward, let the ribs move with them. Thanks, everyone. Soften the jaw. And slowly lower the arms down. Great. Okay, stand on both feet. Have your feet about hips distance. So not going to balance anymore on one foot, but going to stay standing for a little bit. So bend your left knee like you're hanging out, and you're, when we all have one knee that we bend and we kind of sink into that other hip. So actually do that. Sink into your right hip a little bit as you bend your left knee, and think that this left leg is really dropping, like there's a toddler pulling on your left leg, pulling that leg down, right? We've all had that experience. Some of us more than others probably. So that left leg is being pulled. Now take your left arm up towards the ceiling, just straight up, and reach the left arm up. And so use gravity to help pull your left leg down. And it's not going to be the biggest stretch, but we'll get there. You're just looking for that sense of length through the left side. Good, and then let that release. Okay, bend your right leg. Sink your way over to your left hip. Imagine there's that toddler pulling on your right leg. And so just give it a little time to really feel it, the weight dropping. And if you put your hands on your hip points, it should feel like that right hip is lower than the left. Yeah, and that's the side that we're lengthening. So lengthen the right arm up, straight up towards the ceiling. Try to bring the ribs up with the arm. Again, it's not going to be the biggest stretch sensation yet. Right, let that release. Okay, so now keeping your two legs straight, take your right hand to the outside of your right ribs. If that's hard for you to do, this wrist action can be tricky for some people. You could take a blanket and you could roll up a blanket, put it on your side ribs like this and just hug it in, right? We just want a little pressure there on those side ribs. So from here, you're going to bend, side bend, over that hand. Think pure lateral side bending, so you're not dropping your chin or looking down, you're still looking out. And with your right hand or your blanket, give a little pressure into those ribs. And we're just going to be here for a couple of breaths, just seeing if you can yield the right side ribs into your hand. That's right. So the left side ribs are beginning to open. And as you inhale, you might focus on the left side expanding. as you exhale, really emptying the air, yielding to your right hand. Maybe your right ear can drop towards your shoulder slightly. And noticing how there is not a lot of space between the top of the pelvis and the lowest rib. Great. Okay, come on up. Release that right hand down. Left hand or blanket, putting that blanket there between your arm. We just want a little feedback for the left ribs and begin to side bend to the left. And keeping your face facing forward. As you breathe in, expand into the right side. As you breathe out, can the left side yield? Even more than thinking about stretching the right side right now, can you really focus in on that yielding of the left side? Great. Slowly come on up. Okay, that same arm that you were just using, lengthen it up towards the ceiling. Actually, you know what? Since we have the block, let's use the block. Let's put the block between the legs. Just so as we come into this last side bend, we're really thinking that the pelvis, everything from the pelvis down, is staying really neutral. So if you were one of those straws that had the accordion at the top, and you pull the straw longer and then you bend it, the bendy part starts basically from, the top of the pelvis up. Rest of it's gonna stay neutral. Okay, take the left arm up. So hug the block a little bit, feel the tail rooting, and slowly begin to side bend to the right. Now, remember where your hand was on your right side ribs. Begin to yield those side ribs. Yeah, if you want to put your hand there, you can. This might be plenty of sensation. Yeah, if you want a little more, you can take your left arm, so your forearm will be on the top of the head, and then your hand's going to come around and find your temple. Once you do that, drop your head into the hand, and that weight of the head is really going to give you a different kind of sensation through the side body on the left side. Yeah, and then just careful that the chin isn't coming forward or down. Yes, that's good. Great, everyone. Finding a place you can breathe in. Good. And if you have the head, you can actually use the hand and help bring the straw back to neutral. Okay, let that arm go. Take your right arm up. Take a full breath in and exhale, yield the left side ribs as you bend to the left. Good. If it was helpful for you to put the left hand there, go ahead and place the left hand on the ribs if that's working for you. Sometimes too many things to think about isn't helpful. Okay, and then if you did on that first side, the right forearm is going to come to the top of the head, finding the temple area. And first, just check in, make sure the chin isn't tucked. Your face is still facing forward, and then let the head drop into the hand. Good. And the left side ribs really yield. Good. While we're here in this side bend, can you think of length in the low back? Nice. And slowly come on up. Okay, take the block out. Come to the back of your mat. Side bending often makes other things feel a bit easier. So fold forward. So you're at the back of the mat and walk yourself out to down dog. And just feel down dog for a few breaths, feeling the length in the two sides of the body. And you can keep looking for the action of cow spine in your upper back while you're here. Good. Maybe you just have a very new awareness of your side body, or it's lit up in your attention. Great. All right, bring your knees down. Let's stay on hands and knees for a moment. We'll thread the needle. So take your right hand off to the right, could be off of your mat. Bend the right elbow slightly and thread the left arm underneath. And bringing the left temple to the floor, but not much weight on it. So you have most of your weight on your right hand. And so you could really push the right hand into the floor, and then from there, pick your left shoulder off the floor and slide your left arm even farther into that twist. Feeling what needs to yield in order for that to happen. Good. Now feel the two side seams of your body from armpit down to hip crease. Can you lengthen the left side seam by taking the left hip crease back? Right. Slowly untwist yourself. Bring the left hand back to the floor. So from hands and knees, your left hand is going to walk out to the left. And then free up the right hand, thread the right arm underneath. And right temple comes to the floor. And see if you can put a lot of weight into the left hand, even lifting the right shoulder and sliding the right arm another half an inch or so. Good. And then rather than kind of sinking into the right arm, actually take the right arm and press the floor down. So the back of your right hand, push the floor down and see what that wakes up in your chest and in your back. And feel the two side seams of the body from armpit down to hip crease. If you can reach the right hip crease back. Good. Exhale, slowly let that release. All right, come to sit. And let's grab your blankets. We're going to create a bolster like we did last week. So if you have two blankets or a blanket and something else that you might be using, you could even stack the blanket on blocks. So I'm going to take my blanket like this and then fold it in half the long way. So I've got two of them. Okay, then sit with those blankets under the knees. From there, you're going to lie down, grab the blankets, pick the pelvis up. And before you set the pelvis down, so the blankets are right under the pelvis is hovering, do that action. You could do it manually with your hands of lengthening the upper butt flesh towards the sitting bones. So you get a slight lengthening of the low back and then lower your pelvis to the blankets. Great. And just pause there, let the eyes close. Let the breath stay very alive in your abdomen. Give this a bit of time to let the back of the pelvis and let the lower back really receive the support of the blanket. And then just begin the smallest tilting of your knees right and left. Like maybe they just move 2 inches right and left. Just feeling the way that the back of your pelvis shifts on the blanket. Simply using this movement, not to look for a big stretch, but using this movement to tune into the muscle tonus. Tonus being the excitement or the lack of excitement in the muscles. And so letting the rocking of the knees be an invitation to relax your quadricep muscles, relax all around the hip joints, the muscles that keep the hips really stable. Just letting some of that go in this very safe, easy way. And maybe for you, you're feeling it more that it's a release somewhere else. It could be lower back. Continuing to let the breath stay really active in the belly. Good. Bring your knees to the center and pick your right foot up and then your left foot and draw your knees towards your chest and just wrap the arms around the legs and your pelvis will come partly off of the blanket. So the top of the pelvis and lowest part of the low back will be pressing towards the more of the edge of the blanket. So let that happen. And even in this compressed position, can you keep the breath alive and active in the belly and in the low back space? Okay, and then if you have your arms wrapped around your shins, can you take your arms and wrap them underneath your shins so that you're wrapped around the thighs? That's right, flex the feet. And try to keep your thighs as close to your chest as they are right now. And just slowly start to lengthen the legs. And they might not get very straight. Imagine that your feet have something they can push out away into. Great. So the ankles stay flexed, the feet stay active. The back of your ankle, back of your heel is reaching away from sitting bones. Great. And then just do a very subtle movement of trying to bring the back of the pelvis back towards the blanket. And your legs are going to say that they want to move away from your chest when you do that. Just go back and forth a little bit. So your arms, bring your legs towards your chest, and then your pelvis comes back towards the blanket. Just a slight little rocking. Yep, that's it. Great. All right, let that release. Bring your feet down. Keep your pelvis on the blankets and just let your legs lengthen long. Give the front of the hips the opening for a moment. If it's okay for your back, you can let your legs rotate out. And then take your arms overhead so you're kind of in a big X with your limbs. And bring a little bit more lift to your upper back. So those vertebrae between the shoulder blades, just feel like maybe you could unweight them from the floor for a moment. So you feel a sense of stretch in the front from your pubic bone all the way up to the upper belly, up to your sternum. Good. Take a full breath in. And as you breathe in, can you expand your chest? So you're breathing in, and you can even think of pulling the belly in when you breathe in. And then exhale when you need to. And try that again. Inhale and pull the belly in when you breathe in. So it's more of an expansion of your ribs. And as you exhale, can you keep that fullness in your ribs? And then inhaling, come back to that fullness in the ribs. Nice. Exhale. Release it all. Soften the jaw. Bring your arms down. Let your knees bend. Take a hold of the blanket and slide the blanket down so you can bring your pelvis to the floor. Keep the blanket really close to your sitting bones, and then lengthen your legs and feel what that's like to have the blanket underneath the upper part of your hamstrings. See if you like that, if you enjoy that, and you can use that for Shavasana. Otherwise, take a moment to get nice and comfortable for Shavasana. It's just like we very intentionally feel our way into the shapes of the asanas. Very intentionally feel your way into this resting integration time. And can you stay awake or alert during this integration. There's nothing more that you really need to do. And that doing much of nothing can be challenging. And so it may be helpful for the mind if you give it that task of very intently listening, listening to the sensations, noticing if there's an unpleasant sensation. The mind often can quickly and easily attach to that. And if that's happening for you in any way, and you just begin to shift to other areas of yourself. And maybe it's just a neutral sensation that you feel in that area, or perhaps even a pleasant sensation. Without the labeling that one is good or bad, but the practice of listening to all of them. And so just slowly start to expand your breath. And let your knees bend and roll to one side, coming up to a comfortable seat. And bringing the palms together. May you be free of inner and outer harm. May you be happy and peaceful. May you be healthy and strong. And may you care for yourself joyfully. Take a breath in, exhale. Namaste.
Are you enjoying this podcast? I've chosen to offer these audio recordings freely for over 15 years. I do this because research shows yoga, yoga nidra, and Feldenkrais to be valuable practices, those which I would like to share widely. Dana, the Buddhist practice of generosity, has always been a pillar of my business. And more generally, dana is the inclination to give without expecting any form of repayment. It does, however, take a fair amount of time, effort, and cost to maintain and keep the podcasts available. If you feel you've benefited from what you've learned from these classes, then please do consider making a contribution towards the maintenance and upkeep of the classes. It will help ensure that I can continue to offer the podcast classes freely and keep generating new material. Give what you can, give what feels good. If it's too little, it won't feel good. If it's too much, it won't feel good. Links to support the show monetarily can be found in the show notes. And other ways to give include sharing the podcast with others, leaving a 5-star rating and review, or just sending me an email with how the classes have affected you. Thanks so much.